Hey everybody, I am so excited because I have the esteemed and wonderful Doug Cockle here on the channel. Doug is, of course, Geralt of Rivia. Hey Doug, how are you doing?
I'm all right. Thank you, Marco. Thanks for having me on.
So we're going to listen to Geralt of Rivia. We're going to talk about it, and then you and I are just going to chat, and then we're going to have time for community questions.
I love that cello coming in.
I know, it's so good. You froze right as you got into it.
I know. I was all excited. It was the big
the moment
of the music.
As the actor of Geralt of Rivia, and then also like as the embodiment of Geralt of Rivia, how do you connect to that piece, which you're obviously going to connect to it much more differently than I will as a bystander who loves the game but has not lived it like you have, you know?
I think it's important to note for watchers and listeners that I certainly didn't have that playing in the background when I was recording everything. So it's not like it was an inspirational bit of background noise for me or anything like that. One of the lovely things about The Witcher music, this is true of so much music anyways, but I always just find that The Witcher music, it just fits the world of The Witcher so well.
Unbelievably so.
So that piece in particular, it's called Geralt of Rivia. In a nutshell, who is this character, Geralt of Rivia? And it starts off nice and calm. And then, as I said, when we were watching the beginning, those cellos come in. The cello to me is kind of Geralt in the whole thing. But then, it's not too long before, I can't tell if it's tubas or some other big brass instrument, but there's something that comes in a little bit later that's like, it's still Geralt, but it's a different part of Geralt. It's that deep thrumming sound in the song that I think kind of represents Geralt to me anyways. I absolutely love it. And I love the crescendo. I use this piece when I'm doing Christmas cameos. I don't use background music any other time of the year on cameos or things like that. I usually don't use music at all. But for Christmas, I wear a silly jumper and I put Geralt of Rivia on in the background on a little portable CD player with a speaker that I have here. I push play for each cameo and I try to get to some funny bit or some good bit just as the crescendo hits. So in that little teeny space of silence, I try to hit right there something good. I don't always do it, but that's what I go for. So the song is perfectly built for that in some ways. It's extremely well written. I don't remember the composer's name.
Marcin Przejewowicz,
There you go. They did a fantastic job. I think that it represents the character of Geralt really, really well.
It's interesting how music, this is like an obvious thing that I talk about a lot on the channel, but music really guides us. I used to work out to Silver for Monsters a lot. it's such a great piece too, because it like has this quality of the battle, but you really feel like the sort of monstrosities that Geralt fights, and also Geralt himself, and using silver sword for monsters. And it's just such it's an amazing thing that music can sort of elevate things. And you're right in the sense that this piece, the crescendo, we get like the beginning, which is that calm, peaceful Geralt when he's with Yennefer or Triss or whoever, and then as we move into the sort of like the action Geralt, you really feel that thrust of I guess his adrenaline too,
And also, I don't know if I froze before this or not, but when it starts to go,
it builds up momentum. Yeah.
Yeah, but it's that particular rhythm that it builds up that sounds very much to me like, Geralt's gotten on Roach, and they're trotting, they're barreling through the forest, avoiding stuff or whatever.
Yeah.
It just has that feeling about it. So I was getting into it. I was like, yeah, I'm on Roach.
It's sort of a silly question, I guess, but do you feel like Geralt has changed your life? I mean, surely.
Oh yeah, absolutely. The Witcher isn't the only thing in my life that's changed my life. You could argue that for all of us, little micro moments throughout the day can change your life.
Of course.
But yeah, in terms of the kind of bigger picture, without The Witcher, there is a lot that I would have never come into contact with. The main thing is the Witcher community. It's such a wonderful, global, lovely community. And if I had never been Geralt of Rivia, I would have never been part of that community in the way that I am. So it's a beautiful thing. And it has changed my life. It's meant that I could make certain decisions about my career that I may not have made otherwise. It's been a blessing in my life, to be quite honest. I'm not a particularly religious person, but that's the way I describe it.
Because I mean, theoretically, wasn't it just another standard audition you received from your agent, and you were like, okay, cool, I'll do this. And then all of a sudden it was like, oh, this is actually going to be...
Well, it was kind of a slow burn, Marco, because I auditioned for Witcher 1 in autumn 2004, and then we recorded in 2005, and it came out in 2007. So that was a long time ago. And when it first came out, it certainly wasn't what it is now. It was fascinating to be on that journey with the game and with the developer as well. I didn't realize just what The Witcher had become or was becoming, I think, until nearly a year after Witcher 3 was actually first released. Because I was teaching full-time at the time. I was running an acting course here in the UK, and 95% of my energy was going towards that on a daily basis. And it was full on. So I didn't have time to mull over what was happening with The Witcher or with other games, and the online forums and things like that now we go to just by default. Mm-hmm. They didn't really exist in the same way. So
right.
I was in the dark until a journalist came and found me and said, I want to talk to you about Witcher 3. And we were halfway through the interview, and suddenly he said, Doug, you have no idea how big this is, do you? And I was like, apparently not. No, tell me. How big is this?
It's such an interesting phenomenon, because when you think about, if you're not steeped in online culture 24/7, and as an actor, like, you're probably only focusing on acting and the craft of acting. You're not necessarily like looking up, how did that game do I was in? And you know what I mean? Like, because that's sort of masochism, and not always a good idea. Like, because I remember the marketing push for The Witcher 3. And I remember when it came out, I played 450 hours of The Witcher 3. Like, that was a job. When I wasn't singing opera, I was in an opera over the summer, a 3-month gig. I had been to this program a year before, but I was like, absolutely not. I just started playing The Witcher 3. I brought like a 42-inch TV to this homestay, set it up, and I was with my buddy Hunter and this other guy, and we would just like sit on the couch and just play. And I was like, oh, you gotta try listen to the Geralt of Rivia, and they'd be funny, like, oh, look, he's in Novigrad, and now look, you can go to the bank, and you can go to this unsavory place. Yeah, like, it's crazy that, like, as a person who is a huge gamer, for me, I was like very, very, very engrossed in the Witcher 3, and still to this day I enjoy playing Gwent. But like, for you, it's interesting that a year later you were like, oh, this is a huge deal. And then, whatever comes from that, it's very funny.
At that point, I'd been teaching for a long time and doing my professional work alongside. Often it was a really difficult thing to balance because, a full-time university teaching role is full on. Sometimes I would disappear for 2 days a week, for several weeks at a time to record things. For some of those 13 years, at least, I was working like 60, 70, 80 hour weeks trying to keep the two running together.
Yeah.
So when The Witcher 3 came out, you know, it just wasn't even on my, I knew it had come out. I had the game. I was playing it myself. I just didn't realize how much love was, you know, was growing for this game that now many people feel is iconic.
But your students didn't say anything?
Yeah, no, they did. They would, you know, students who played and who were into gaming and stuff, they would, you know, shyly come up to me, Doug, are you the voice of Geralt of Rivia? Yeah, I am. Yeah. By the way, 5 minutes to class. Go get yourself started out. I'm rushing into my desk. Where's my notes? Where am I doing? Oh my God. Because I was the course leader and manager. I was always rushing off to senior management meetings and things like that. So I wasn't just teaching. I was managing my teaching staff, my technical staff. I was managing 3-year groups of students, spearheading or part of institute-wide initiatives and academic programs and things.
You were deep in,
busy. I was busy. So it just missed me. Another journalist, Julia Hardy, who's a television presenter for games and technology, she said to me, we were out one night looking for macaroni and cheese. She said, Doug, you're so funny because you just don't realize how big The Witcher is. And I said, no, I think I don't. But maybe that's just me. I don't know.
When did The Witcher 3 come out? I believe it was like 2015. Do you feel like now, I mean, I don't feel like, you know, like games have this cyclic pattern where they either fade out of in obscurity or like they're like, you know, underrepresented gems or they underappreciated. But I feel like The Witcher, like you said, is sort of iconic game now, especially The Witcher 3, due to it. I think there's just the sheer volume of people it reached. It doesn't seem like it's let up, really. You know, like the sort of popularity of Geralt. And of course, you've appeared in Monster Hunter and in Soul Calibur and all these other alternative dimensions. Do you feel like you're able better now to sort of be a part of the community of it at large and manage? Because you're also doing other projects. You were just in Aloe Week 2, but like surely The Witcher is always sort of right there on your shoulder, I would assume. To some extent.
It is, but in both a good way and a bad way sometimes. The bad way is that although it wasn't before I started doing The Witcher, Geralt's voice, where that sits within my own voice, is now firmly just part of my voice. I just relax a little bit and let my voice drop into a nice, relaxed, mellow, you know, not projecting for the microphone at all. You can kind of hear a bit of the Geralt in there. Yeah. I mean, Geralt is properly down here, really. But it's... You know, he's there in my voice. And I was just talking with it might have been you actually, Mark, because we talked very briefly the other day. People recognize me in other games, even though I'm trying not to sound like Geralt.
Yeah, the voice print. Yeah,
the voice print. It works both ways. Sometimes people don't want me in their game because they don't want to mix up their wonderful IP characters, you know, with Geralt of Rivia. Some people are like, you know, get Doug in, and then the first recording session, the first thing they say is, right, so the kind of voice we're looking for is kind of sort of, you know, the voice, but not the voice. And I'm like, I know exactly what you're after. You're after my Doug is Geralt, not Geralt voice. I know.
Yeah. Well, voice print's a funny thing, though, because it's like, that's also just your speaking voice. You know what I mean? Like, and I think this is like one of the misconceptions of like, acting is that, especially I think voice acting falls into the problem of it. You're an actor, you have a voice, and you are playing a character. Thus, you are playing, you know, the voice print. You can only go so many directions. You either pitch slightly up or pitch slightly down. You relax the throat, you know. So it's funny how, because I remember I did this like smaller NPC in it was a big festival event in Genshin Impact, and I was a musician, which was even funnier because, you know, the channel and everything. But people were like, oh, he sounds too much like himself. And it's like one of these problems where because people hear me every day, they're like, he's not even acting. And I'm like, no, I am. This is just my voice print. Like that was the voice print, you know.
It can happen in other ways though as well. I was in a show a long time ago, The Glass Menagerie by Tennessee Williams, and I played the gentleman caller. And it was at York Theatre Royal here in the UK. My first professional job in the UK. My brother-in-law came to see the show, and afterwards he said to my wife, she said, you know, how did you like the show? Well, you know, what did you think? And he said, oh, it was good. It's weird though. That's just Doug. I wasn't there for this conversation, so I couldn't explain why it's not just me. But there is this thing when an actor uses themselves really, really effectively, it just feels natural to the watcher, to the person observing. You know, they just feel like, oh, that's just them. But the work that the person has done to come across that easily as natural and not acting. There's a lot of work to make it look that easy.
Yeah. And that's actually a great question too, is that like, because I mean, I don't know how much you have in common with Geralt of Rivia, but I struggle with like playing characters. Like I did an audition recently and I was like, man, this feels like I am putting it on right now. And because it's like, it's supposed to be someone like this. And it's like,
Yeah.
So like, do you find that it's hard? Like Nightingale is a prime example. Now I haven't finished all of Alan Wake 2, but I finished the corner that you're in. And it's like, how does one approach that as an actor? Because, you can sort of, it's hard because you don't want to get too lost in the weeds of like, well, I don't want to spoil it for people, but I'm this character, which is very clearly not me, but I have to bring me. So how, without getting unsolicited acting advice, which is not what I'm asking, but, but broadly speaking, like how does, for an audience who's watching this, like how do you do that especially as like a Geralt or a Nightingale where that's not really who you are, but there are elements of it. You know what I mean?
The way I approach acting and the way I teach acting as well is very much of the school of you can't be someone else. You can only really be yourself behaving in different ways. Other actors will tell you the exact opposite. Other people will go for they believe in the full transformation thing, but I just don't believe in that. I don't believe it's humanly possible to fully transform yourself into somebody else. I believe in truthful performance, and the whole concept of truth is subjective. By truthful, what I mean is that the audience watches what you're doing and they believe in the possibility of the reality of it. Sometimes we call it suspending disbelief.
Yeah.
Yeah, but there's suspending disbelief, and then there's finding the truth of a character and finding the truth of that character in a moment of action. And I think that they're slightly different. They're very, very strongly related, but they're different. I always try to find in myself the pieces of myself that fit this character. I don't teach as much anymore, but I still, if it comes up, this is how I explain my approach to character. I believe the character is the sum total of the actions that you take. It doesn't really matter what you wear or, what accent you have or anything like that. It's the actions that you take that identify character to an audience, really. I mean, you could have a whole argument about, but you see someone walk on stage and the way they're dressed instantly tells you something about their character. And that's absolutely true. But that's surface level stuff. That doesn't give you any kind of depth or truth. That's just signposting. If you don't have the fundamental core of something truthful in the way that they're behaving, the reasons why they're behaving the way that they are, and all of those things. And a lot of these things are unseen. Mm-hmm. If there's no truthful core, then it's nothing but set dressing. That's all it is. It's just a good picture, but there's no heart in it.
Right.
So I approach my acting from the point of view that I have to bring myself to it. If I don't bring myself to it, they can see through it.
Yeah, right.
They can tell when you're just going through the motions, or not even that. If you're not bringing your heart to it.
It's also on the flip side too, when it comes to the audition too, like, as well as I do, that they are looking for a voice that works. So you have to like be truthful, but then also have a voice that works. So you can be as honest as you like. And ultimately that's why they always say that auditioning is the job rather than booking the gig, because like ultimately the amount of times that you're going to audition is going to be way more than the times you actually book. But ideally, like when you're auditioning, you're also bringing a truthful performance to that audition rather than just like worrying about how it sounds, because as casting directors, like they're also thinking about that, and like there's all these different variables that are out of your control and stuff. But I hear what you're saying about reading a line and thinking about how would I want to say this, why do I want to say this? I think those are important in questions, I think.
A lot of actor training focuses on that in the early stages, breaking down a script and identifying what your character's objective is, what's in the way of them getting what they want. It's all the basic Stanislavski kind of acting stuff. I don't know if that's part of opera training. Is that, when you train as an opera singer, is that?
It can be. Usually, honestly, I had a really fantastic director, Nick Muni, and one of the coolest things about him is that we did pre-lives. We would improvise scenes with other characters. So yes, the characters were part of a scene together where they sang, but in general, you never really do that in acting with opera. Like it's all the same stuff, but because the music sort of indicates how to feel and how to be, all you got to do is do this when you're upset and you sing. You know what I mean? Like, it's not like
you can do that. And you can do that and connect it to something in your own heart and soul.
Oh, 1,000,000%.
You know, then there's a difference between the two. Not to say that the performance of the person who doesn't bring their heart and soul to it is any less valuable. It's just different.
Let's get to some community questions. So nobody 8717 says, I got one for Doug. What's your favorite improvised line that made the cut?
I have no idea.
You just make it.
Sorry, dude. Yeah, I mean, I to be quite honest, it wasn't one of those gigs where I had a lot of room to improvise. Not that I didn't, but mostly when I did improvise, it was to break the tension because we've had an hour of some heavy stuff. So I'd say something really rude and off the cuff just to make me and the director and the engineer laugh.
Yeah, just
has nothing to do with in-game stuff.
Yeah.
You know, and
it really isn't that
it's
much.
Really crude. One of the engineers who I worked with a lot, James Batley, he had a running gallery of Doug outtakes, and I think he still has it. He's on LinkedIn. You can go find him on LinkedIn, James Batley, and you can ask him if he has Doug outtakes from The Witcher.
Was that through Side Global?
The Witcher 1 was through Outsource Media, and then Witcher 2 and 3 were through Side. They weren't Side Global at the time.
Yeah,
they were just Side.
Yeah, I met the crew in LA just a couple weeks ago. Nice people, really nice people.
Yeah, lovely people. Yeah.
So were your lines were they the standard video game stuff where there's an Excel spreadsheet and boom, 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 boom?
Yeah, and it was interesting through from Witcher 1 to Witcher 3 DLCs. We did do a tree saving evolution. So with Witcher 1, God, if you could ask Mark Esdale of Outsource Media about this, the sheer amount of pages of paper, of spreadsheet that we had to print off so that the folks from CD Projekt had their own copies.
Oh my
I had
God.
my copy in the booth. I mean, we must have killed whole forests just recording Witcher 1. And then we started off Witcher 2 with paper scripts as well. But somewhere along the way, we started to transition to having the script on a screen. And it took a little bit of getting used to, because with the paper script, you could pick up the page and work with it if you wanted to. There was something quite nice about having the physicality of dealing with the script as a physical entity in front of you. And then once it went onto the screen, it was like, all I have to deal with is myself now. Oh my goodness, what do I do? You know, and gradually, even the music stand that the script used to sit on, for a while it stayed. And then it started to go away. A little bit further away, so that crutch left as well.
Yeah.
As a performer, you develop your little crutches, and sometimes, just having the music stand there helps you maintain your proximity to the mic, and your stationary place in the room as well. Because if you're doing voiceover work, you're not bouncing around the space. You can't, because it makes too much noise and you go off mic and everything else. So sometimes having that music stand there was just a little bit of a physical presence to stop you moving in too close to the mic or wandering too far away.
I find like that's one of the hardest parts about voiceover, is that you're just in that room and you're kind of like, all right.
Yeah, you're on your own. Directors for Witcher 3, all of the directors that I worked with were actors first. They all trained as actors, and then they became directors. And Mark Healy was one of them, and he still works as an actor all the time. They're all people who know what the person in the booth is doing, which is always really helpful. And I always found as well, if the director had to read in, it seems like it's all often best if they don't try to play the other character. They give it not a dead, dry read, but a slightly emotionally flat read, which makes sense because they can't be 100% in whatever multiple characters they're reading for you. But also, that's not the performance that my character's performance is going to be responding to.
Right.
And God, we're getting into esoteric stuff here now.
No, it's okay. I mean, I understand it.
Yeah.
So this is for me after all. So
yeah, no, you posted something recently that basically said, do what you love to do. And the people who love what you do will be on board. And the people who don't, they'll go do something else.
That sounds a little bit more poetic.
I thought it was quite good how you phrased it. I'm shortening it.
Rowion asks, if Geralt played an instrument, which would it be and why? Alternatively, which instrument do you feel represents Geralt the best?
Geralt played an instrument. The one that comes to mind, I don't know why, is the hammered dulcimer. He's not a music kind of guy. I think if Geralt were to take up music, it would be like most of us take up knitting or, something that just occupies your mind so that you can forget about other things. So I think a hammered dulcimer would be a good mind-occupying instrument for Geralt.
King of Depravity asked, what was it like playing such a hardcore, gentle, and hardcore character?
I never thought of him as hardcore. It's interesting that, many people do. He's a guy who has a job that is inherently dangerous. It's all he knows how to do. So he gets on with the job. If that's hardcore, then that's great. I suppose maybe the hardcore part of him is that he's supposed to be emotionless, but I never saw him that way either.
Right.
I think it's that if he allows his emotions to lead him, then he's dead. It's like that, this world doesn't need a hero. It needs a professional. Heroes, if they know that they're heroes, they're looking for the heroism. They're looking for the moments to be a hero. That's not Geralt. He's just living his life and trying to do the best with it. And sometimes that is hardcore because somebody's trying to kill him.
It's interesting how as an actor has the specific sort of intentions or motivations, and then those are then when they're released into the world, they're interpreted in a different way because people bring their own context and their own life experiences to characters as well. It's like with music or anything, right? But like a composer can say, oh, I wrote this because of this, but then other people show up and they're like, oh, when I interpret this is how I feel about it. And then it's all of a sudden it becomes this amalgamation of all these different things. It's interesting for like a character like Geralt.
And I have no idea whether anybody actually does this consciously. I think some of the most iconic performances, some of the most iconic music, some of the most iconic works of art, visual art, whatever it is, anything artistic, I think one of the things that makes a particular piece of artwork, not necessarily iconic, but what makes it work is if there's room in the work itself for a wide variety of audiences to interpret for themselves. If the artist has done all the work for the person who's going to partake of the art, then there's nothing for the audience to do. We need to leave a little teeny bit of room for the observer to place themselves into the work in some way, shape, or form, to relate. That might be more true for performance than for some other things, because I'm sure there are some visual artists who might hear what I just said and go, no, my art is for me, and it has absolute meanings, and that may be true. But I think if it has absolute meanings, if it doesn't have some way for people to relate to it, then they're just not going to like it. They won't know why. They just won't like it.
Also, you can't really stop a train because if the train is going to go anyway, you can't really. Absolute truth is so rare.
It doesn't even exist.
Yeah, I know. It's a separate conversation. Yeah. You and I are about to get esoteric there.
Let's pull some Nietzsche into this thing.
Yeah. Man, these names are funny. Reginald Mustard Bacon 5866 asked, I have a question for both of you guys. Any memorable fan interactions you've had recently?
I just recently did a convention. I was signing autographs and things, and it's fascinating how people respond when they come up to the table. Some of these people, they wait for, an hour or longer just for the chance to talk to me briefly, get an autograph, and tell me whatever they want to tell me about their experience of The Witcher. I mean, I had someone, this last one, who she was dumbfounded. She didn't know what to say or what to do. She had all these, she was there with a friend, and her friend finally said, she's been talking about you this whole time in line. She's been, saying how much she wants to say this and that and the other. And then she got to me and she couldn't speak. And that's actually more common than I ever expected, really. I've had people cry. I've had people tell me, through their tears, how much The Witcher has meant to them, how The Witcher helped them get through a really, really difficult time in their life. It came along at just the right time for them to be able to pour themselves into this other world for a period of time, just for an hour a day or 2 hours a day, so that they could forget about something else in their life that was really, really tough. Ironic in a way, because, The Witcher isn't known for its easy decisions. In game, you're dealing with tough stuff. Maybe it's that act of being able to deal with something that's really hard in an environment that, if you get hurt or you die or whatever, it's, you can go back to a previous save. It's not permanent. It's not safe forever. It's safe. It's safe danger. And I suppose that's true of a lot of games.
For me, the most recent one was just the first one ever. Actually, I was in a Genshin Impact concert in Boston. I was really nervous because I wasn't sure if I was going to be recognized, and oftentimes one of the things that I sometimes get frustrated with about the channel is that I don't want to become a pundit. I'm very much an artist through and through, and I still very much want to be a voice actor, and I very much was an opera singer, and I still love that part of me. But so like when I talk about this music all the time, I sort of am nervous that I will be viewed as just a guy who talks about music while there are more talented people doing it. And that's something that as an actor and as an artist, I feel like, well, that's not, and I know I'm doing something very ultimately extremely beneficial for people. So to have people come up to me and just say, thank you so much for the work you're doing, or wow, you're so tall and stuff like that. I was like, yeah, I am. But that was really, really satisfying. And it was the first time that I'd been out with people and like had people know me on that scale. So it was cool.
It's interesting, isn't it? It's I don't know if you feel the same way, Marco, but I suppose rightfully I feel very separate in many ways from the work that I do. You know, the work that I do is the work that I do, and you know, I put myself into it and stuff, but it's not me. It's what I do. I just find it weird that people even want to meet me. You know, it's like, look, I don't look anything like Geralt. You know, unless I put the voice on, I don't sound like Geralt.
Just a guy.
Yeah.
I think what's harder for me is when I get comments that like sort of insult or question like a choice, because I work really hard to be as candid and as open and vulnerable as possible. And sometimes if someone comes on and is like, why did you do that? Or this is fake. I had a lot of that at the start where people are like, you can't possibly be guessing the character's themes based on the music. And I'm like, no, I am. And like, imagine the effort it would take for me to pre-record, like go over and listen to all this stuff and then somehow talk about, like, on the one hand, it's a little bit more intimidating. Like if someone thinks a voiceover thing sucks, like I'm in a game and I've read some comments on the old internet and it's like, wow, the voice acting is terrible. And like, I'm like, well, I got paid. So I mean, whatever.
Yeah.
Well, it's different than like, you know.
That's not just down to the voice actor either. You know, there's 95% of the time there's a director who's been looking after the performances of the voice actors. There are engineers whose work directly impacts on the way that the voice sounds and how it's, you know, audio designers who integrate those voices into the game.
Script writing.
Script writing. It all comes together. So you can't really blame one person if something doesn't tickle your fancy. There's kind of a whole team of people to blame. Yeah. Not that you should be blaming anybody, really.
But but that's a logical choice that doesn't always.
I mean, if you don't like it, you don't like it. But you know, I had when Witcher 2 came out. I don't know why I was doing this or what led me there. I wasn't actively looking for it, but I ended up in like a comment section on a Reddit forum or on an Amazon like review thing or something. But you know, some people were having a conversation about it, and one of them said something to the effect of, yeah, I'm not sure about Geralt's voice actor. You know, they didn't even know who I was. They didn't mention me or anything, but they just said, sounds like a 16-year-old trying to sound like a 40-year-old. And I was like, yeah, I read this and I just thought, but I am 40. I feel 16 sometimes, but I'm 40. I can't win. Yeah. I mean, I was just like, wow. And you can't be upset by things like that, but you can't help but kind of go, what did I do wrong?
Yeah, right. I really tried. Daniel asks, do you think his character is well captured by the music that is played while he's on his travels alone or with someone? Or is his character better captured by the music played during his battles between him and monsters?
Well, they're kind of one and the same, really, aren't they? I mean, if a good composer will compose music that represents the character in a given
scenario,
time, I think it all kind of does the same thing. I think so. I think the music for The Witcher 3 in particular, since that's the music we were listening to, I think it fits the world of this character and the character themselves very, very well.
Cryptographer 3 asks, what type of music does Doug imagine Geralt would prefer?
I think Geralt is a little bit like me. It really would depend on his mood. I love to listen to music while I'm cooking. I like having that in the background, singing along to things, dancing around in front of the stove. You know, I really enjoy that. Now, I don't know if Geralt cooks or not, but I can just imagine, like, if he's home at Kaer Morhen and he's kind of chilling out, you know, and just wanting to have some home vibes. But maybe if he's just feeling a bit loose and free, I bet he's up for a bit of metal.
I could see that.
And just a bit of, really good, strong guitars, driving drum beat. I could see him getting into that. Equally, I could see him, on his travels, rocking up with Roach, tying Roach up outside a tavern, walking in, getting a cup of meat and sitting down at the table and just really enjoying, the bard on the other side of the room, plucking away at a harp and singing about lost love.
It's amazing how people so deeply connect to a character that they would want to know like even more of that three-dimensional aspect of them. What would you say to him if you showed up at your house? Well, you'd be like, what the hell are you doing here?
Just knocked on my door.
Yeah. Like, what's up?
Open the door. Hey, are you Doug? Oh, Geralt. Hi. I wasn't expecting. Should I put a kettle on? Would you like a cup of tea? Coffee? Something stronger? I don't know.
We have some chatting to do.
How you like that silver? Gotcha.
Unda Marinel asked, any artists or genres you prefer, and has any piece inspired your creativity and or affected any of your performances, and how?
Actually, music has been so important to me for a number of performances in the past. When I was in graduate school, I had the wonderful opportunity to play Macbeth in Shakespeare's Macbeth. I don't know why I can't even remember what the song was. I think it was Lorena McKennitt. And I just stumbled across this particular song. I used to drive into rehearsals listening to this song, and then it just became my song for the show. Mm-hmm. So before every single show, in costume, in makeup, 10 minutes before curtains up, my ritual was to sit down on the stairs leading up into the Vom and then onto the stage. And I would put my headphones on and I would listen to that song. And something about that song just put me in the right headspace to play that character the way I was playing that character. I mean, that's a very specific example, but that's happened to me on a number of occasions where a particular song or a particular kind of music just becomes whatever it is that I need. Mm-hmm. To emotionally and psychologically put me in the right place. Music's hugely important to me. It's, I suppose, less important now as an older person than I was when I was younger. Mm-hmm. But even now, music is hugely important. I just discovered a band, and they're purely fun. And they're called Fizz. They're just this lovely goofball band. They remind me of when I was about 10 or 11, I was introduced by my older brother to the B-52s. Fizz very much reminds me of the kind of spirit that the B-52s had. Slightly irreverent, a bit comedic, mm-hmm. but very serious in what they're talking about in their songs. But there's just something about the four of them. And then they have a drummer and a bassist who come on board regularly and play with them. But I literally only just discovered them about a week ago, and I just can't stop listening to them. When I'm cooking, I often will either say to my smart speaker, I'll say, play me music like The Cure. The Cure is one of my favorites mm-hmm. from my teenage years, and then it'll play me all kinds of stuff, The Cure and other things. Or I'll say, play me music like Metallica, which I know is like pop music now, but when I was growing up, Metallica was kind of one of the, you mm-hmm. know, Metallica, Iron Maiden, Judas Priest, Ozzy Osbourne. This was all stuff I did not listen to when I was a teenager because it was the devil's music. Oh yeah. And I grew up in a household that didn't want devil's music. And so I never really got to appreciate them fully when I was a teenager. And I've had a renaissance of 80s, 70s and 80s metal.
I'm glad you're reclaiming that for yourself though. It's important.
Totally.
This isn't a video game, but let's broaden it because I know you've been an actor for so long, but is there a performance in your life that isn't from CD Projekt Red that you really love?
There was a game I recorded 2 voices for. They're both different, but kind of in the same vein. And it was a game called Randall's Monday. And I played 2 characters, Mel and Bob. I can't remember which is which. One of them, I think, was running a hot dog or burger stand or something. And the other one was the owner of a pawn shop. I really enjoyed playing those characters because they were so unlike what I'm normally asked to do. I'm normally asked to play slightly gruff anti-hero kind of mm-hmm. guys. in games, which I enjoy. I love doing it, but it's nice sometimes to do something very different. And Mel and Bob were very different. I don't remember who was who, and I don't even know if I'm doing the right voice now, but I think Mel or Bob was something kind of like this. So I got to play this kind of character who was a bit of rough around the edges, had a bit of an accent. I don't know. Is this New York? I don't know. Maybe the spirit of it is what I was after. So,
Yeah.
I got to do that kind of thing, which is really, really good fun. I don't know that I have a favorite. I mean, Geralt is my favorite, but after Geralt, I think it's all much of a muchness. I've enjoyed everything I've ever done. There was this character though. If you play Hunter, I hope that's what it's called. I'm blanking a little bit on the name of the game.
Hunt Showdown. Hunt Showdown.
That's the one. And I play the tutorial guide. John Victor, his name is. So I had to do this accent. I remember when I first got the audition, I was like, oh God, I've never done a Louisiana accent. So I did some research. I watched lots of things on YouTube and tried my very best to get those sounds into me. And then I sent my audition away thinking, I'm never going to get this because, I'm not known as the accents guy. And then I got the call, they want you for Hunt Showdown. And I was like, well, that's absolutely amazing. Sometimes at these auditions, it's the ones you don't think you're going to get that you actually do get.
Yeah.
Oddest thing. But so I did this and I really enjoyed it. I did 4 hours of recording for that. I just really enjoyed the freedom of being able to explore this accent and this character. And, and because the accent is part of the character, it's not that they're separate at all. It's, so through the accent, the character. And that was just really great fun.
It's very good. I remember I played that a couple weeks ago, actually. And I was like, this is Doug Cockle.
Apologies to anyone who has a natural Cajun accent or natural Louisiana accent. I hope I didn't butcher it. I did actually do my very best to try to get it right.
What does he think about Geralt always naming his horses Roach? And does he remember each one? Naming every horse the same so he will always have Roach by his side no matter how alone he is so sad, but it also fits given that witchers live much longer than horses and other people.
Wow, that took it deep. I was going to say he's just too lazy to name his horse anything else. He got too much else going on. He can't be bothered with finding a name for a horse every time he changes his mount. Just all Roach because he likes the name.
It is an interesting spin though, huh?
No, it is a really interesting spin. And it could be that the reason that he names all of his, I wonder if there's something in the books about that, about why he names all his horses Roach. It might be that he's unconscious. Look here, I'm going to get all gestalt on you or whatever. By naming his horse Roach every time he's got a new horse, he's creating for himself some kind of normalcy, continuity in his life, because he doesn't exactly live a stable home life. He's constantly on the move, constantly in danger. He can't even decide which woman to be with. He's a mess. So if he just names every horse Roach, at least that's a constant in his life.
I think that's incredibly fair. I mean, if you think about that too, that also makes a lot of sense because a lot of us sometimes, if we're very stable in certain aspects of our lives, sometimes we deviate and do things that are sort of crazy or unstable. If you're in a monogamous committed relationship, you may, like I play every video game under the sun. That's the only time I allow myself to deviate from my monogamy of my relationship. I'm like, I'm going to try you. I'm going to try you. I'm going to try you. I'm going to try all of you, and like that. But I am very
can't do that in the real world, can we, Marco?
I am very monogamous and very committed, but I will absolutely try everything in games or in food or, so I suppose, but that's a really interesting, I really actually see that. That's kind of, or he's just lazy and just like whatever.
Or he's just lazy. He's not lazy though. I mean, I think it's, you could argue that he just can't be bothered to come up with a new name, but I think it is actually a search for some constancy in his life.
Well, with that, I just wanted to say, thank you so much, Doug. I really appreciate you taking the time out. Oh, and we should talk about your new venture. For those of you that are still hanging on, we should talk about this. This is exciting, and please just take the stage and share, fill everybody in.
Me and a bunch of other games industry buddies over here in the UK got together recently and decided we really wanted to play some Dungeons and Dragons. And then that evolved from just playing in each other's living rooms to let's make this a public venture. So we started our group. We're calling ourselves Natural Six, and we are nearing the end at the moment of our Kickstarter. So we've got a Kickstarter going just to get us the initial funds to pay for hire of cameras, hire of recording space, and technicians to run everything just to get us off the ground. One of us, I can't remember who, jokingly referred to ourselves as Britical Role. Because we're kind of trying to do a similar thing, similar but different kind of thing that has seen Critical Role become the success that they are. Not that we ever expect to become Critical Role. They are amazing, but we want to play D&D too. So we're doing it, and we're calling ourselves Natural Six. Check us out. We've got a Kickstarter going. We're on socials, on Twitter and on Instagram. So yeah, give us a follow, check us out, and look for us. We're coming your way in 2024, whether you like it or not.
That's right. Well, that's good. Yes. Feel free to check that out, and you should. And I'll put links in the About section for that. And of course, Doug, thank you so much for just taking the time out, an hour and change. And it's really great. It's super inspirational for me, obviously, as a person who is in the weeds trying to make a career out of voiceover, and also this and the YouTube channel it's been a blessing. And I just feel so grateful that you were willing to just talk with me. And they say don't meet your mentors, but I feel like you're a pretty nice guy. So I feel lucky that we've been able to connect and have a good chat about all sorts of different things. So I appreciate you.
Yeah. And can I want to congratulate you as well, Marco, for, like you said, we first connected, I don't know, 4 or 5 years ago, something like that. I can't remember exactly, but it's been a long time. And we were interacting on social media and things like that for a while. And you've been asking me to get together for a coffee for ages. And for one reason or another, it's just never happened. And it's been nice to finally actually speak to you face to face, as it were. And it's just been fascinating to watch your journey, because when you first contacted me, you were trying to transition from singing opera as your main career to voiceover work, not just in games, just voiceover work in general. I've watched you kind of evolve your practice and your presence with your YouTube channel and everything else. And it's amazing. You've done so well. So I just want to say congratulations. You've done fantastically.
Thank you. Yeah, it's very empowering. And it feels nice that I started it from a place of really grieving my father and wanting to not feel like a pariah about how much I love video games and video game music in a very pure way. To now it's really like one of my missions is to really like educate people about how to like actively listen. And I feel lucky because it helps me pay my bills and continue like working and trying to build this like sort of like interactive, commercial radio voiceover career that, thankfully, because of the YouTube channel, I would be very, very concerned if I was just relying on that, because you do your auditions and you do your thing, and most of the time you don't book, and it's you just try to stay optimistic and just keep going. And so I really appreciate that, Doug. Thank you very much. Check out Doug's socials. I'll put those in the About section too. Keep up with him and whatever con you're going to next, which is, I'm sure there's someone happening somewhere soon. And yeah, thanks a ton, everybody. And we'll see y'all later. Bye.
Bye.